Two straight facts on a Wednesday. It is Wednesday. I'm getting very confused now. It's Wednesday. Sava is back with us again. We can see his clean and tidy garden behind us as well. Very, very nice for winter. It really is. How are you, mate? You well? You good?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm just downstairs. I'm having a few bits and bobs done upstairs in the house, so I've had to relocate to the annoyance of the missus. And yeah, you've got a view of the garden. So lucky you.
Nice. It's nice. Lots to delve into today. Obviously, the Premier League is returning. Cannot wait. We get a nice 3 to 4 months slog now of football. And I actually think, including Champions League, between now and the end of December, there's like 12 different match weeks crammed into 6 weeks. It's going to be amazing. We're going to speak about some of the games this weekend. We're also going to touch and get Sava's opinion on everything going on with FFP, sustainability, cheating allegations, including his club have now been dragged into this as well. And I want to get his opinion on an article that I read today talking about City being stripped of titles. We're going to go through all of that on the terrace today. We want to get your views and opinions as ever. But of course, we want to understand what Sav thinks about what is going on. Any questions you've got, super chat them in and member chat them in. They'll always be prioritized as you are supporting the terrace and keeping us going. Of course, as I always ask, hit the like button if you haven't done it yet and make sure bell notifications are turned on. But Sav, I wanted to actually start with a little bit of football, a little bit of football. Are Spurs going to respond and bounce back after 2 back-to-back defeats? Are you ready to win again, do you believe? What's going on with Spurs?
No, I listen, I've said I'll bite your hand off for a point against Villa. The injuries are piling up. I think the Dogie is now injured. So he missed the Wolves game through suspension. He's now injured, what we're led to believe. So there's going to be him, Van der Ven, and Romero from the back four. James Maddison's out. Basuma is suspended because he got a yellow card against Wolves. I think it's going to be a long 90 minutes. Yes, Villa aren't very good away. You could say that. But, I mean, we're back to bare bones, really average players that were poor last year. Dyer, Davis, Emerson Royale, Højbjerg. Even the front three, Kulu's not really doing a lot. Brennan Johnson is okay. Son, without Maddison there, hasn't got a single bit of creativity behind him. So, look, I think it's going to be a really long day. I'll say what I said before the Wolves game. I said if Spurs beat Wolves, it'll be our best win of the season. We didn't. I'll say it again. If we can beat Villa this Sunday, I think it'll be the best win of the season. And I'll take a point if you offer it to me right now.
Do you know what? I get where you're coming from. Some people would say, and I'm quoting the great Lee Gunner, where are your standards? Why aren't your standards higher? Why are you not demanding a win, Sava?
I'll tell you why, because I've just named all our best players aren't playing. And we didn't build a squad significant enough to cope with that. And look, it looks like we're going to line up that looks like this. And when we're talking about where are my standards, it's the standards that Tottenham have set. This 11, forget the goalkeeper, looks like it's going to be Porro, who isn't great defensively, Davis, Dyer, Emerson Royale, Højbjerg, Sarr, who's a kid and not playing that great at the moment, and I don't know, does he go Lo Celso, Bentancur, one of those two guys, and Bentancur's just coming back from a 10-month injury. And then the front three of Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, and Son. So you've got no creativity in there. You've got no pace in the back line. You haven't got the ball recovery and the driving of Basuma. It is what it is. This was my worry. This was my worry at the beginning of the season. This was my worry. What will happen when we start getting injuries? And it's starting to happen. So it's not about standards. Lee Gunner and I have had this chat a million times. I'll talk to him on any channel. You could talk about standards, but the players that we play on Sunday just aren't good enough. They're just not good enough.
Yeah. Do you know, me and Lee probably have this conversation 100 times, and sometimes I don't know whether he actually gets my point. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean, I just think he goes, no, don't want to hear it. I have the same standards for my club as he has for Arsenal. But that's where I want us to get to. I can't demand results from a team that I don't believe is capable.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I can demand the club makes the team better, but it's going to take time. You can't be a team like Man United, or, as we are right now, and go, me demanding that team on Saturday or Sunday, whenever it plays like Man City, me demanding it this week isn't going to work. Me demanding the team improves over time is, and I think there's some nuance to it. But I understand where you're coming from, and I'm really intrigued to watch Tottenham play this weekend, because we got 3 minutes of good football from them, barring Bakar, I thought was fantastic in goal again, even against Wolves. Though he conceded 2, but he was fantastic. I'm intrigued to see how they're going to do. They're at home, so that's an advantage. But Aston Villa are a team in excellent form. I think what Unai Emery has done there is somewhat being underrated. When you consider, I understand why Postecoglou's had a lot of flowers this year. It's been the best start to a brand new Premier League manager ever, and I get why that gets credit. Yep. They're only a point, I think, ahead of this Aston Villa team, who have almost, it feels to me anyway, almost been completely ignored from the main conversations and the main narratives. So they're going to be a very difficult team to beat. They've got an excellent squad, they're well drilled, and with the holes in your team, the lack of creativity in your team, I kind of feel like Villa are the favourites. I do feel like they come to your ground.
Look,
the weekend, I think like favourites.
I think, listen, it's just like anything in life. These things happen, injuries happen. And unfortunately, Spurs are at that stage where the players we brought in the window were needed for the first team, but we haven't got around to building a squad capable yet. And there's a huge difference between having a team and a squad. If Van der Ven, Romero, Udogie, Basuma, Maddison are all fit, I would make us favourites at home to Aston Villa. Right?
Yes.
So it's not that I think Aston Villa are better than us in general. But Aston Villa at the same time, what they've got is what we absolutely can't cope with without Mickey van der Ven. And it is that pacing behind. Whether that's Bailey, whether that's Diaby, whether that's Ollie Watkins, that pace, that running in behind, Wolves exploited it time after time. Difference is Wolves aren't that great at finishing. They got there in the end, but time after time, getting in behind. And that's what I think will be undone. If Spurs can win that game, hats off to them. I don't know where the creativity is coming from. The backup players just aren't good enough. They're just not good enough. Look, we've had this conversation.
There's a great comment here. I need to put it to you. Now, you remember, Twisted Bubba likes to say things. I wouldn't say he's a controversial commenter.
I've seen it.
He says here, Sava, stop using injuries and squad debts as an excuse not to beat Aston Villa, basically, is what he's saying.
I mean, when you're missing all your best players, you're gonna lose games. I don't know. I feel like we've got to the point in football now where common sense just goes right out the window. Listen, Spurs aren't that club that can have. We're nowhere near that club that can have all our best players missing and still expect to beat teams who are in the top 5 or 6. We're not that club. We couldn't beat Wolves with those players missing. Now we've got Basuma missing from that as well. It's too many all at once. Terry, I've sat here week after week and said to you, adapt. Look, if we win it, absolutely brilliant. But do you know what? What I'm saying now is a carbon copy of what I said before the Wolves game. And before the Wolves game, right, we did a watch along. Before the Wolves game, someone said to me, what do you think the score's going to be? You're live on my show. And I said, look, I think we're going to lose 3-2. I said, I just don't feel that we've got enough to cope with any team that runs at us when Van der Ven, Romero, and Maddison aren't playing. Where's your standards? You're negative, you're this, you're that. Okay, cool. We then lose 2-1. And people are going, oh my God, it's because of negative fans like you we lost. No, it's not. We lost because the 11 that were out there weren't good enough. And Wolves exploited that. Now, if I'm Unai Emery, I know I'm in that changing room all week. Yeah. I'm saying, run at them.
The reality of the situation is, and I know there's the adapt and try something different, but when you remove the level of quality from the Tottenham team, Aston Villa become the better team. Now, I think you're very close anyway. And if it was the other way around and you took Ollie Watkins and Luis, who else? You took the goalkeeper away, maybe. You took Diaby away. who else could we take away? McGinn away. So you took those 5 players away from Villa. The same would be said in the opposite direction. So yeah, it's a strange one to me to say just adapt, because it's not as simplistic as that. It really, really.
Do you know what, Terry, right?
Yeah, that's all it is.
Even just one play, even if we look at, first of all, Van der Ven being out of the back in terms of his pace and recovery is huge. It's absolutely huge. But James Maddison, they put up his details on the screen the other day, and it showed Spurs with Maddison and without Maddison. Now, he's played most games, but what they did is a lot of games he's come off after 60, 70 minutes. And what they did was added all those minutes up, plus the game he's not played, and they showed, here's what Spurs create when James Maddison is not on the pitch. And it's next to nothing. It's next to nothing. We don't create without him.
I had this conversation with Will Stewart a few weeks ago where, and if I slightly word this wrong, I apologize. My memory isn't photographic, but paraphrasing, he essentially said he doesn't, looking at the underlying numbers, he can't understand and see why or believe in any way, shape or form that Arsenal were going to improve and get any better this season. But at the same time, ignoring the underlying numbers, didn't believe that Spurs would lose creativity, losing James Maddison, where there's, even when fully fit and playing, there is no one in your squad that's created at the level of James Maddison, the Lo Celso, Bentancur, whoever it may be. There's always going to be a reduction. And I think that being ignored is crazy. And the funniest thing is that so many Spurs fans, well, I think we've got a chance to top 4 this year. I've seen an improvement. Can we win a title? No, because we are going to get an injury or two. And when we do, what then comes in is substandard. So until a squad is built where you feel relatively relaxed, and there's always a star or two in every team that cannot be replaced. But until you feel relatively relaxed about a particular player being injured, the likelihood of you winning the title diminishes exponentially, because your fear of that player coming in is just a telltale sign that you know they're not good enough. And I think for me, the amount of Spurs fans ignored that so early on in the season, called you negative, called out Kate, called out the Spurs fans that were happy with the progression, but just weren't sitting there thinking to themselves, we're going toe-to-toe with City all season and we're not going to pick up an injury. I thought it was mesmerizing, the amount of people that did that.
What I find funny is, and look, I'm on a lot of shows throughout the week, whether it's mine, yours, whoever's show I'm on, and people are always saying, like, oh, just back your team. And I love it. I love this notion that if you just back something, it must work. It's not about backing the team. Sometimes it's about honesty. And what a lot of football fans haven't mastered is that maturity to turn around and go, okay, how good is my team? How good is it not? What happens if X, Y, and Z happens? And I've sat here and said to you, for the first 3-4 months of this season, Spurs are a decent team when everyone is fit. I said to you, the moment we get a couple of injuries. Now, I didn't think it would all happen in one game, Terry.
Yes.
But it did all happen in one game. And we are now seeing, right? We are now seeing that we can't cope. Now, if we beat Villa, brilliant. As I said, be the best win of the season. But then you've got to look at the other side of things, right? If we lose to Villa, we've then got Man City away. Now, all of a sudden, you're 4 games without a win or 4 defeats in a row. So listen, this is a big, big, big test for Ange Postecoglou. It's not for me to find some, that one, find ways to win. That's not my job. Postecoglou's job is to find ways to win.
And this is the thing. I was at Leyton Orient last night. I went to watch Leyton Orient with my brother. My other brother wasn't going, to a spare ticket. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to have an evening off, go back to where I grew up and go watch Orient play. And my brother is home and away, has been for years. And the section he sits in, lots of the guys around him are all home and away and have been for over 30 years. So my opinion on their dedication to the football club is there's very few football fans in the world that are more dedicated to their club than they are.
Right.
But they kept on turning around to me saying, what do you think of it? And actually, I haven't been to a League One football match in about a decade. The quality of football has risen up. There's passing out from the back. There's more patterns. It used to be very much knock the ball into the channel and run. That's what it was a decade plus ago. They got 2 or 3 players out that have the ability to beat a man, they were telling me, and they don't really have a killer up front. And they were a little bit impotent, and they found it really hard to penetrate, and they found it really hard to break down Lincoln. And then in the last moment, they conceded a goal. They were probably the better team in terms of play. But they're all sitting there, diehard fans, saying, we really ain't that good at the moment. We're really not where we want to be. You know, I just can't see us getting any better at the moment. I can't see us winning games. I wasn't sitting there thinking your standards are on the ground. They were speaking about the reality of their football club, the squad they've got, the injuries they have, the money that's available in January to improve, and how long it's going to take a club of their size and stature to get to another level. This notion that you can just sit there and say, I don't care who's injured. I don't care how much money we have in comparison to our rivals in this league. Yeah. I don't care about any of the circumstances or the context. As long as I have high standards, we will improve. In my personal opinion, all you're going to do is make yourself genuinely miserable because you're living in cloud cuckoo land sometime. Now, if you're a Man United fan and you spend the most, and your club spends the most in the world, has the biggest wage bill, that's more of a case of, well, I demand us to be at the absolute tip of the tree or up near it because of what we're spending. But at the same time, if you think after the squad we bought was awful, that still has to adjust how you think game by game, season by season. If suddenly we had Man City squad, literally magic wand, we had it, my expectations would be to win the league because we've got Man City squad and we know they're capable. So yeah, standards is such a weird thing to throw. Yeah, young Harry that come on as a Spurs fan said, if I will it to happen, I think we can win the league. I'm like, bruv, you can do that a little bit in your own life. If you have great motivation and willpower, you can lose weight and get fit in the gym. You can progress in your own career. But me sitting here and willing and praying that David Hay makes a comeback in boxing and his body fixes itself, me willing it to happen isn't going to make it work. There's nothing me wishing it. There's no amount of wishing and praying is going to make that happen. But look, viewers, let me know what you think and what you feel. Terry, Terry, no one gave Ten Hag similar understanding. Over 5-6 first-team players every match. So listen, this is what I would say. This is where I kind of slightly look at this differently. If Spurs were at home against Luton this weekend, I would say I don't think the injuries are an excuse. They've still got a better team. They should win. They're not, though. They're playing Aston Villa, who are a good team. So I think my point of view is just with Ten Hag. With the injuries he's had, am I absolutely fuming that we didn't win away at Arsenal? I'm gutted, but not so much fuming. Same with Tottenham. I think we should have put the ball in the back of the net. When we've been outplayed by teams that will probably be relegated this year for large parts of matches, then I'm also looking at the manager. If they start losing games, Tottenham, at home to relegation fodder because of 3 or 4 injuries, then you have to start looking at the way the team is playing, the manager, because the players are still better than that. So I think there's a fundamental difference there. Moving on from Spurs for a minute, Sav, I wanted to ask you as well about Chelsea. It was maybe the game of the season so far, one of the best games I've watched in many, many years when they played Man City towards the end of the last game before the international break. It's a massive test for them. I'm surprised this game's 3 p.m. on a Saturday. It should be a televised game. It's Newcastle versus Chelsea, 3 p.m. on Saturday. Huge test for Chelsea because St. James's Park has become pretty much a fortress. They're having a great time under Eddie Howe. How do you see this game going, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chelsea will be quite happy that Newcastle have got a lot of injuries at the moment, but then I suppose you could say the same of Chelsea as well. They're just starting to tick a little bit, Chelsea. As I said, I think this year is a transition year for them. I don't think a lot is, I think, a lot of people expect them to challenge for titles. I don't think they're anywhere near that. But you can see that now that they've started to get a few of their players back and now that they're starting to play a settled team every week, they're actually playing some nice stuff. Look, we'll find out. They got 4 versus us. They got 4 versus City. Is this the new them? Is this the way they're going to play? Are they going to score? Look, I'm not saying they're going to score 4 goals every week, but this is what they were lacking from their game before. It wasn't that they were playing terrible football. It's that they couldn't finish their dinner. So listen, I think it would be a good test. Away at Newcastle is never easy. But Newcastle have got a lot of injuries throughout the spine of their team. So I think I think you're right. This should have been a televised game. I think it's going to be a good watch. I think it's going to be a good game. I really do.
Yeah, me too. I mean, look, they've done it before. They could have put it on at 8 o'clock on Saturday. They could have done something. I know that there's Champions League for Newcastle in the week, but to not have this televised is, look, there's some really good televised games over the course of the weekend, but to not have this one on TV is very strange for me personally. I think it should be, and I'm excited about it. And I'm really intrigued to see the uplift. I mean, Chelsea this year against the bigger and better teams That's where I think their best performances have come, even though they haven't won all of those games. And there's a bit of confidence flowing through them. And, Cole Palmer didn't play too much for England, but he's looked so good in a Chelsea shirt. And look, City won't be regretting it because they're City. They're top of the table. They're the best team in the world right now. But it just goes to show that the quality that club is producing when Cole Palmer's and Lavia's are now, ironically, both at Chelsea, are being, farmed out and shipped off to other clubs. You've got Douglas Luiz's, who people forget he was an academy player at Manchester City, is now doing very, very well. And they're producing so much quality. And I think Cole Palmer is going to be an interesting one in this game. And for Newcastle, look, they've had a lot of injury problems. And I think this is why Chelsea have to pounce, in my opinion, because Chelsea are getting players back. And you saw Kieran Trippier with the Newcastle fans just before the international break, sort of saying, why are you guys kicking off? Why are you guys so angry? Do you not realize how many injuries you've got? I'm not too sure how many have returned. And I think we'll get to know that in the press conferences in the next few days. But I actually think with the injuries that they've got, this is a great time for Chelsea to lay a bit of a marker to say, look, win the game, because they've had a lot of draws against the bigger teams. Win the game. Say we're beating a big team away from home, a Champions League team away from home. And we're catching up. We're catching up and moving in the right direction. They've got Nkunku now, I think, is back training. He may not return for this game, but that could be a game changer for them, getting him back in the team. Lavia is training again, I believe. Do you suddenly add Lavia into the middle? You add Nkunku into that spine as well. Suddenly, the overarching strength and the additional quality on the bench, I think it's a game changer for Chelsea. They've looked very good at times without those two. Add them to the mix. And I don't mean this rudely. I think like Gallagher's looked decent this year, but I think when them two find their feet, they're a level above, in my opinion. Yeah,
listen, I think if anyone took a step back and looked at Chelsea, what was going on, it's too many injuries for anybody to cope with at the beginning of the season. And since they started, as I said, they've started to get a settled 11. They've still got injuries to come back, like you said, like Lavia, like Nkunku. You start adding some of these players, Chelsea will be a good team. How good? I don't know. I don't know how good. Let's see how they play when they've got the likes of Lavia in there, when they've got the likes of Nkunku. Cole Palmer, I think, will get better and better. But one of the things that I talked about when I first came on here at the beginning of this year was, it took Poch time at Spurs as well. He's not a guy that goes in and transforms you overnight. And I know a lot of people seem to think that with Tottenham, that he came in and, oh my God, we were great under him, immediately. It took him a year to get rid of players, get the players learning and playing his way of football. I think they're a decent side, and I do think that they'll be. Look, this year, I think for them, if they can get into Europe, they'll be over the moon. If not, I do think that a couple of additions, they could be a top team. But what they can't do is they can't be going on like they've done the last few windows and like 10, 15 players coming and going every window. Yeah. They've got to settle down, and I think they will now. I do think they will. I think they need a keeper. I think they need another striker. Other than that, I think they've got the nucleus there once they get players back fit. How good? I just don't know. I don't know is the answer.
Mate, listen, I agree. I think in their coming transfer windows, it has to be a little bit more surgical, a little bit more pinpoint. I think they need, generally speaking, they need slightly older, more experienced players, because they just need to add a bit. They just need some for these young players. They just need a bit more garble, a bit more experience, a bit more man strength, or a bit more understanding of the game. They can get people that have got won titles or won Premier Leagues or won trophies elsewhere. So I think, although Ivan Toney would work great, depends on how good people think he is. Osimhen, Serie A winner, Champions League player. He isn't that young. I think he's 23, 24. But just to bring in a bit more star quality into this team. And I think I actually don't know how old Nkunku is. I can't remember that. I've never really checked, if I'm being honest. I don't think he's that old, but I don't think he's a kid either. What is he, 20? He's 26. So yeah, I mean, he's not a kid by any stretch of the imagination. He's of that age where he's, I'm just looking now at, how many games he's played in his career. And this is a player with 277 games, he up until his injury, 10 caps for France as an example. This guy's won, he was with Paris Saint-Germain where he's won league titles. He's won, I think he's won the Pokal a couple of times with Leipzig as well. So this guy's got some winning pedigree. He's been around winners. He's trained with brilliant people. They just need a little bit more of that, Chelsea. And I know there's been a lot of people wishing and praying, kind of hoping that they're never going to get back to the top. They're done now. They're finished. I've always felt that was exceedingly premature. Very, very, very premature thinking. And you have to wait and see a little bit. And you're already starting to see the green shoots of that progression coming in. And they're going to spend again. They've had another £500 million invested into the football club, and they want to spend it on making the team as best as it can be. And as these young players start to mature as well in the coming few seasons, I think they're going to be, I really do believe Chelsea are going to be a force to be reckoned with. And if they've built this foundation that's got a particular style of play that's built on youth, and they just keep adding young players and a star every now and then, it's going to be sustainable for the medium to long term. And as I said for a while now, I think people should be keeping a close eye on Chelsea, because I think they're building something that could be quite scary.
Yeah, listen, for me, it's very up in the air with Chelsea. I think they've made some really good signings. I think that the whole £1 billion sort of glossed over what they're trying to do. And what I mean by that is that it's not like they went and spent £1 billion on 10, 15 ready-made players who are immediately ready to win. I think they bought a lot of young players. Look, we'll see. The test for Chelsea is, once they get a lot of their players back fit, how good are they? How well does Nkunku do? How well does Badiashile, Fofana? That's the test for them. And at the moment, it's been a rocky start for them to the season. They haven't scored the goals they would have wanted to. But as you said, the key thing, I suppose, from Chelsea, and my brother-in-law's a Chelsea fan, by the way, he said, look, there are green shoots. And he's quite a sensible Chelsea fan. He said, what you got to understand is this isn't Chelsea of old. So people get, again, that whole demand, standards, things go in cycles. Not everyone can have that standard to win every year. And Chelsea are in a couple of years stage at the moment where they're having to build and grow. And I think they will. How quickly that is, I just don't know. I just don't know.
Mate, and I agree. And what you said earlier about how they spent their money, I get the criticism. They spent $1 billion and they don't have a prolific goal scorer. I get that criticism. But what people have also got to factor in is some of that money they spent has already been sold on. It was mistakes.
Yep.
So you can't really label that this manager and what they're doing right this second. But I get the criticism. But I think they've spent about £300 million on players where maybe they're not expecting very many of them to play for Chelsea. I think they go, right, let's get this kid here, 19 million, superstar looking talent. We'll loan him out. We'll do something with him. And then I think they're going to try and double their money. I think they've bought a lot of players where they're going to try and flip their money. They're looking at what City are doing. The amount of money City are generating at the moment, hundreds of millions of pounds a year of income through the sale of young talent they've either nurtured through the academy or bought at 15, 16, 17 into their academy, loan them out a year or two, and then sell them. You get get £25 million for a player that you spent 12 million on, and you've been loaning him out, so somebody else has been paying his wages. It's a business model that generates more income that then enables you in the longer term to spend that money on stars. Yeah. And I think that people are they're not looking past the end of their nose when it comes to assessing Chelsea. Everything's very basic, low-hanging fruit. Spent $1 billion, they're not top of the league, therefore the spending has been bad. This is the project that you're going to have to judge in a few years' time, in my opinion.
I think as well, what we've seen from Chelsea, they've kind of tried to build a whole squad in like 3 transfer windows. And I've never seen anyone ever do it that way before. and the thing is that I came on at the beginning of the season and said this, the thing is they're human beings. Football fans just go, £1 billion win. But they're human beings all being chucked together, brand new manager, new setup, loads of injuries. And of course, they're not going to hit the ground running. Of course, it's not just going to be win after win after win. They've had some bumps. They've had some good games. They've had some very unflattering games. But as I said, I like their midfield 3 at the moment. I think has got a cohesion to it in terms of Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Gallagher. Again, Gallagher, not everyone's cup of tea, but he's doing a job. Palmer looks like he's getting better game on game. Sterling's picking up. Even Jackson in the last few games has started to score goals. Look, adding Nkunku to that as well. Look, as I said, we'll see how good they are. But you can't, not everyone can win every year. And that's the point of it. So that's always the debate that me and Lee Gunner have is we can all sit here as fans and go, got to win. But you're saying it, they're saying it, they're saying it, they're saying it. someone can't win. Only one can win.
No, I understand that. And look, you get comments. I do get this comment. To spend $1 billion and not win anything is crazy, respectfully. It is if you're looking at it within a very small frame and time period of one season.
That versus that.
So my point, Aaron, is this. What if the spending now builds a foundation? One of these young players, some of them turning into absolute superstars, who, by the way, in another 4 or 5 years with the inflation of the game would cost even more. And with £300 million of players purchased who are then sold on for 50%, 100%, 150% profit, that is then reinvested in 2 or 3 more stars that turn them into a team that wins 3 Premier Leagues over the next 6 years, another Champions League, multiple domestic trophies, and back up there by the top. Sometimes the building blocks that you put in place now, you don't see there's a saying I heard once, and I want to get it right because it was a beautiful saying, but it was somewhere along the lines of, men plant trees today to provide shelter for the men of the future type thing. And sometimes you don't see it. Yeah, there's a saying along those lines, and sometimes the work you're doing today isn't for an instant result. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But I do understand that, especially in 2023, the need and the desire for instant gratification. There was a comment that also said that Bowley only wants commercial success, not footballing. Well, let me explain this to you, Twisted. With the amount of money they had to spend to buy it, the amount of money they've spent already, for them to make a significant commercial gain, a significant yield, they will have to generate sporting success. Even with TV money increasing, sponsorship increasing, they're going to need to have sporting success to make a considerable profit on the billions that they've invested into the club. It's different from when clubs were bought 20 years ago for 300, 400, 500 million, and are now suddenly worth 3, 4, and 5 billions. You don't need to even pump any money, and the growth's been huge. If you're buying a club, like people are saying, what's the Jim going to do at Man United? If in the end he ends up spending 5 billion buying the club, let's just say he wants to turn it into a club that's worth 15 billion in 20 years' time. He can only do that by us winning trophies. If we continue to stink, he will not get a return on his investment. So it becomes a little bit chicken and egg. So even if the overall gain in 15, 20 years is for Todd Bowley to sell Chelsea at £15 million, they're going to need to win and win regularly for that to be achievable, in my opinion.
Do you know what? I think the funny thing is as well, is like, I get it. As football fans, we're all emotionally invested. And, if you're not a Chelsea fan, it's great to look at them and laugh. And if you are a Chelsea fan, we've spent £1 billion, we want to win. But I don't think anyone in any walk of life puts in £1 billion into any project and expects it immediately. I think if you are investing that much money, it's for a long-term thing. I'm sorry, you can't just, like, the billion is actually overriding what they're trying to do, in my opinion. I think they've bought some very good players. I'm not saying all their signings are going to work out. Of course they're not. No one has 100% hit rate. But a lot of them, like, I think Cole Palmer's a really good signing. Right? I think Caicedo's a very good player who's getting better and better every time I watch them. Enzo Fernandez is, people still forget this guy's 20 or 21. Like, I think they're going to be fine. But me saying I think they're going to be fine doesn't necessarily mean I think, oh my God, they're going to win a league next year. Because the era of when Chelsea had the most money and could just buy themselves to titles, that's gone.
It has gone because
City are there now. Newcastle have got money. Arsenal have got money.
And that is why they had to. That's why the Roman model started to fail. And yes, they won that Champions League. But most Chelsea fans I speak to, when they're being honest, they papered over cracks. They haven't challenged for a Premier League in 7 years. And a lot of that, significant amount of that, 5 years of that, is under the back end of Roman. So to ignore that would be preposterous. I wanted to ask you about another big game this weekend before we get into some stuff about the FFP and stripping titles and awarding titles. So I really want to get your take on that. Liverpool visit Manchester City. It's a 12:30 game. Yeah. Again, I do feel a bit sorry. I know, listen, that they're rivals. They might draw. It might be good for everybody, but that's a 12:30 kickoff. I still feel like that should be the 4:30 game on a Sunday. It should be the signature piece of the weekend. But how do you see this one going? Is it going to be a City win, or do you see Liverpool taking some points off the champions?
I see City as favourites. I was having this chat on Mo's channel earlier. I just think at the Etihad, they're too strong. We're looking at what games have they actually lost at the Etihad in recent years. And it's crazy that the teams that have taken points from them are the teams you wouldn't expect to take points from them. they've been very good against the Man U's, the Liverpools, the Rs. Do you know what I mean? They've been very good against the bigger clubs. And I think they just raise up to it. Look, Liverpool, I think, are a good team. I do. I think Liverpool are a good team. I think that Liverpool, this is a year too early for me for them to win a league, for example. I think that obviously they had that massive changeover in this year of, I think it was 5 central midfielders out and 4 came in, something like that. I think Liverpool are good. I don't think they're anywhere near the Liverpool they were a few years back, but I'm not saying they can't get back to that. I just think the City are a little bit too strong, and I would expect a City home win.
Yeah, I'm expecting a City home win. As in, I agree. I think they're the absolute favourites for this game. I've just got a sneaky feeling Liverpool might do something. You know,
feelings.
Feelings. It's purely I think Liverpool might do a little something. So I don't know if they'll beat them. I think they might grab a draw in this game. I really got a feeling they might grab a draw in this game. And I would love it to happen because for me, I am genuinely desperate for not just a good title race between two teams. The way this league table is looking, again, you look at where Spurs are, 2 back-to-back defeats. If City drop points and you do beat Villa, suddenly I'm not saying you're in the title race right now, but suddenly if 4 teams are all keeping pace with one another in these early stages, it makes the back end of the season so much more exciting. So look, I don't want Liverpool or City
to win
the league. Sorry,
I think that for everybody's best interest, they need Liverpool to win this game. In terms of, if Man City win this, they then go, they're still top, whatever happens to everyone else at the week. Then they've got a depleted Tottenham team the week after. I expect them to win that. And then you're getting to the point where City start making that gap 2 points, 3 points. It's 5 points. Once you get to that stage, it's over. So for me, I think Liverpool need to win this for the rest of the league to feel like everyone's in it. I just don't think they will. I'm not saying they can't. I don't think they'll win.
Yeah, I don't think they'll win. Just my gut feeling to this game is draw. And it's not a dig at City. It's just I think they're both really good teams. And I think Liverpool are a little bit better than people have given them credit. And they're a good
team.
I see them scoring. I was trying to think my thought process through out loud here. I just think they'll score some goals against City. Liverpool will concede chances because they do. But if I'm doing a score prediction for this game, I'm going 2-2. I think a 2-2 draw, kick the Premier League season off, the return of the Premier League after the international break with an absolute humdinger. And then what it does, and why I want this to happen, so this is the element where I want I'm not just saying it because I want it to happen. I think a draw will happen. But the reason I want that feeling to be true is because then it makes a bit of pressure than on Arsenal's games, a bit of pressure, even more pressure on Tottenham's game, which is against Aston Villa, where, a little door's been opened here to
that's
go
it.
ahead. That bit there for me is why it would be exciting if it happened. But look, City are the favourites. They have to be the favourites at home. There's no doubt about it. I don't buy into this nonsense of not been as good this year. They're pretty much on the same amount of points as they always average.
They've had a better start than last year.
It might be better than last year. They're a phenomenal team. I think this year, though, Liverpool are back to looking really good. We know that what Arsenal can do. And I think that, I'm excited about this one. It's the return fixture after this. It's an early kickoff. And I also think as well, there's this, Liverpool have had a hoodoo for a long time in these 12-30 games. And I know they won their last one. I just think sometimes you ever been to the casino and you're like, I always put my money on the roulette on 17 if I have a flutter. Sometimes it just doesn't come out for hours. I'm going to stop now. I don't want to lose any more money. And then you come back to that table 20 minutes later and it came out 3 times in a row. I just get this little feeling that like a London bus, they've barely won any or got any real good results at these 12-30 kickoffs. And I think they're due. And what it will then do, it will stop the Liverpool fans from moaning about always having it, because then they've won some and it becomes a non-talking point as well. So, if I'm going to put a prediction, I'm going with 2-2 in this game. Only because if any other team they were playing at the Etihad, I'd go with City win. But because it's Liverpool, I'm going 2-2 for that one.
Look, I'm looking at the league table right now, and I think it's important for so many reasons. If Man City do win, When do Arsenal play? Arsenal play Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday, 5:30.
Okay, Saturday 5:30, and then Tottenham play Villa on the Sunday. So that means all of the top 5 would have played, right? So if Man City win, they open up a 4-point gap above the team immediately below them. Then all that pressure goes on to Arsenal, right? So doesn't it? So, and then if Villa beat Tottenham, that means that Man City could end this weekend. I'm not saying it will happen, but Man City could end this weekend 4 points clear of the rest of the league. Once you start getting to that stage, Terry, it's worrying.
No, true.
So Liverpool, for everybody's sake, need to get something. I'm just not sure they're good enough. I'll be brutally honest. At the Etihad, I just think they'll dictate the game. We know that. They'll have the ball. Can Liverpool catch them on the counter? Of course they can. I think, that is the way you get teams that play a high line and keep possession of the ball. But can Liverpool do the league a favour? I mean, let's hope so. I just can't see it. I always get asked this, like, oh, you want City to win? I don't want City to win. Me thinking they're going to win isn't me wanting them to win.
It's so funny. You've said City are going to win. So this is. I love football fans. You've said City. You think they'll win, and you just want them to. I say I think it's going to be a draw. No, Terry, you just want it to be a draw.
Yeah. I want them to win. You want it to be a draw.
We're just giving you our predictions, for God's sake. So, sorry, it doesn't match what's going on in your brains. Honesty here says Darwin is on smoke this season, and Van Dijk stats are way better than he was at his peak. And Van Dijk also stats wise smokes Diaz. 2-1 Liverpool. Darwin Núñez brace. I mean, that if Liverpool were to pull that off and win 2-1 away at the Etihad, I mean, they're already points wise right now. They're keeping that would throw the cat amongst the pigeons in a massive way, wouldn't it?
But right, okay. So this is the thing. So I mean, I always get stick for saying that I don't think anyone other than City will win this league title. Cool. Well, these are the games where the people have to prove, not just me, other fans that think like me wrong. Right? These are the games where, all right, if I love City, Sava loves City. All right, cool. Let's see Liverpool go and beat them at their ground. Let's see Arsenal go and beat them at their ground. Tottenham have got them next weekend. Go and beat them at their ground. Right? It can't just be. It can't just be. We want them to. Somebody's got to go and do it. It can't be hope. Somebody's got to go and do it. If Liverpool beat Man City, that, as you said, cat amongst the pigeons opens it massively up. But as we said, if everything goes the other way this weekend, they're suddenly 4 points clear.
Yeah, no, it's the. Yeah,
it's like that.
Well, it's why they call these games like I don't know what the points. So they're a point behind now, so they can go 2 points ahead of them, or they can go 4 points behind them. That's why they call these things 6-pointers, don't they? Because the swing from what it could be to what it is crazy, So Liverpool
could end this weekend top of the Premier League, right? Or they could end it 4 points behind Man City. This is a huge game. I think I know it sounds like an obvious statement, but it's a huge, huge game for both clubs. Let's see what both are made of. I think Liverpool are a very good team. Some of the games I've watched Liverpool, I thought they've looked devastating. Other games, I think they've looked mediocre. And for me, it's just that inconsistency, which I don't think will see them win. If they do, fair play to them. And like I said to Mo earlier on stream, right, Terry? Do you know what's the worst that happens if I'm wrong? I'm wrong. Like, I don't understand. Like this big thing. Like the world ends.
The world does not end. It does not end. It continues spinning.
Do you know what I love? Is people like you invite people like me onto shows, and whatever you're asked, somebody's going to find a way to rip your opinion apart. So, who do you think's going to win the Premier League? Oh, Man City. Oh, you love Man City. All right, cool. Ask me again. Who's going to win the league? Liverpool. But Liverpool, they're nowhere near good enough to win the. Everyone's going to be pissed off with something you say, right? So, mate, listen, it'll be a good game.
It will be a very, very good game indeed. Viewers, please make sure like buttons have been hit. Please make sure you. I've just seen your message, by the way. I'll sort that out. Please make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribing to the Football Terrace as well. Look, I want to keep it on City. It's been an interesting week since we last spoke. A lot has happened in terms of off the field stuff, really. We've seen Everton deducted 10 points for breaching profit and sustainability rules. They've been very much defended by the mainstream media, defended by a lot of football fans. saying it's a blood. I mean, I've seen headlines such as they're a blood sacrifice. It's a disgrace that they've been punished, as an example. You then have people move on to the talk of, City's investigation. The news today is that Liverpool, more than any other club in the Premier League, are pressuring the Premier League and the sort of when's this trial happening? When's the hearing going to be? We need to know what's happening to Man City, because there is now sort of a lot of I spoke to a lawyer today, a friend of mine, and tried to gauge his opinion on this situation. And his view is he feels that Everton have been punished the way they have as a way of almost setting a precedent ahead of the investigation into Chelsea and the trial into Manchester City, to say, well, if breaching the rules, but through an honest way, in the sense of you just got your practices wrong and processes wrong, what could the potential punishments be if you flagrantly ignore the rules, cheat them, financially dope, use offshore accounts to hide money? It gives them a precedent to say, well, this type of breach is 10 points. This could be 20. This could be 30. This could be 40. What's your feeling on this whole situation as it stands right now?
Yeah. Football's gone mad, hasn't it? It's just gone absolutely mad. Look, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I do feel that look, let's be fair, that people at the moment keep putting Everton and City together, right? So when the news broke about Everton, most of the news wasn't even about Everton. It sort of got swept under the carpet very quickly, and it was, but what about Man City? Now, first and foremost, you've got to look, these are two different situations, right? Secondly, I agree with the comment you just made there. I wonder who said that to you. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think what they're going to do is, I think Everton, who have admitted their guilt, by the way, right? This is the difference. Everton have admitted their guilt. What they're contesting is the punishment.
Yes.
Man City haven't admitted their guilt, and they're going to take it to court through whichever means necessary, which is going to drag it on for years and years. There's the difference.
It won't be dragged on for years and years. So there'll be a hearing, but all the Premier League clubs sign a charter or an agreement that once this type of independent hearing happens, there is no recourse for the Court of Arbitration. So once this hearing happens, they could appeal the punishment, but they won't be able to appeal the verdict. That'll be done.
No. That's fine. But my point is, whether it happens in the next month, 3 months, year, 2, whatever happens,
it could go on a long time. Yeah,
it could go on a long time. But they're querying their guilt. That's the difference.
Yes,
Everton won. Now, what I think they're going to do is, I don't believe this 10 points is going to stand. I truly don't believe that Everton will end up with a 10-point deduction. I think what will happen is they'll go through 3, 4, 5 points maybe as a deduction. Then I think when they do get round, if they get round to Chelsea and Man City, for example, giving them penalties, I think what they'll then do is give them 7, 8, 9 points, and they can turn around then and say, hey, look, we wasn't just looking at you. We looked at Everton. They only got 3 or 4 points. You did more wrong. We've given you more points. I think that's as serious as it will get. I know a lot of people want it to be relegations. I know a lot of people want it to be these ridiculously over-the-top punishment. I can't see it. I think it would cause so much mayhem. Can
I ask you a question to interject there?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. And this is all ifs, right? Because if they're found guilty, if we look at the thing is this, I know that Everton have admitted their guilt. I'm not pulling you up personally. I don't think that's the right phrasing. What they are guilty of is they've had a project that hasn't worked. They went
but you know what I mean. It's just the word.
I'm going to build up to what I'm saying. It's not a dig. It's just because the difference between Everton, say with Man United, you got brought up yesterday on the show. Well, why hasn't there been energy around Man United's FFP fine from UEFA? Well, firstly, Man United weren't supported in it. Man United haven't been overly condemned because it wasn't huge news. And the reason it wasn't huge news, I spent a lot of time last night reading more about it. And United did make some losses. But the reason why UEFA said it's only a minor problem and we're not worried about it, and we're only going to find you a very small amount of money retrospectively, is because UEFA admitted that the reason that Man United, along with around about 10 other clubs in Europe, failed to meet the regulation is because they set a regulation 2 years prior, and very close to the deadline where they had to submit all their accounts, UEFA changed its protocols, which meant Man United now fell outside of it. If they hadn't changed their protocols, United would have been okay. So UEFA recognised this. That's a different situation to Everton's, which is they've spent a lot of money on multiple areas of their football club. Their belief was, we will improve as a team, we'll finish higher in the table, we might even win something, we'll gain bigger sponsors, bigger income, maybe even Champions League football, and we'll balance the books. And they've got it wrong. But all of those things are mistakes that on all the reviews by all the independent panels, Premier Leagues, UEFA's, they've gone, it's honest. It's an honest mistake. We don't think there's anything untoward.
There's no malice in there, is there?
No malice.
You've just run it badly.
Yeah. So that side of it. When you look at Chelsea and City, if they're found guilty of pushing money into agents and clubs from offshore accounts, so it didn't go through their books, so they could keep spending money, if it is proven that City have sponsors that are not really businesses or that don't have the money, that the Sheikh has pumped money into the club via these sponsors so they can spend money on players, do you believe 7-8 points is a significant punishment? Because that just says to me, everybody might as well cheat, because it might take 5 to 10 years for this punishment to happen. And what's 7 points in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, look, I mean, first, look, this is why I think football's turned into a bit of a joke. Do I believe if that is the case and if they're found guilty, because at the moment they're not guilty, like innocent till proven guilty. If they are found guilty of all of these things, then I'm really interested to see how this plays out. I'm really interested to see what is the precedent they're going to set. Is it going to be 10 points? Is it going to be 20 points? Is it going to be they're going to strip titles? Is it going to be that they're going to relegate them? I'm really interested to see. They've got to be punished. If found guilty, this isn't just Man City, by the way. If any team is found guilty, punish them, sure. But I then want to see how they're consistent with that. And I want to see the measures they will go to, the lengths they will go to. Now, the reason I said about relegation, Terry, does anyone truly believe, forget what I think or what you think, right, should happen. Forget what should happen. Does anyone here truly believe that the Premier League are going to relegate Man City or Chelsea? Does anyone truly believe they're going to?
No, I do.
You believe they will?
I'll explain to you why I think they could. And this is why I think it's such an interesting conversation that needs to happen amongst fans, journalists. And I'm actually annoyed the bigger channels, as in the Skies, are not having these in-depth conversations, bringing on lawyers and experts and going through this. I understand the notion that there's no way they're going to get. Let's just put Chelsea aside for a minute. They haven't even been charged. So it's not even where City's is. Yeah, some people say, well, they're not going to kick out of the league one of the biggest teams and the money that's involved. Yeah. Well, it depends on what the sponsors say of the Premier League. It depends on what the reaction is, because you might have a brand that says, well, hang on a minute, we owe you half £1 billion. We don't want to be associated with a league where you're not punishing cheats. That's an example, and there could be multiple. There could be multiple clubs that turn around and go, well, we're going to sue then. And if you get multiple clubs doing it, that could cost the Premier League money. I understand that getting rid of City for a season or two because they get relegated, or Chelsea, or both, will have a detrimental effect financially on the Premier League. But not punishing them adequately enough could, again, this is what you said earlier about, like, if you spend £1 billion, we shouldn't just expect to win a Premier League straight away. In the short term, it's probably better for the Premier League to keep them. But in the medium to long term, it could damage the Premier League exponentially if you, again, and this is what I say to people, it depends on what they've done. There's a comment that came through a minute ago saying I'm a United fan and I don't think what they've done is that deep. See, I don't understand that, because even if you just look at the stuff that Chelsea have self-reported, they bought 2 players that helped them win trophies in Willian and Eto'o, but Eto'o was declared as a free transfer. But they actually paid, Chelsea self-reported, so I understand what Chelsea have said themselves, is that the money was paid to his club via an offshore account of 30 million. And now there's investigations into multiple situations like this that haven't even been made public as of now. If clubs for a decade have been circumventing FFP by cheating and breaking the rules, we don't know the ramifications of what that's helped create for that club, the trophies they've been able to win. You know, it depends how much money has been siphoned into these football clubs over these period of time and the squads that they were able to build. We have all, at times in the past 2 decades, lauded Chelsea, lauded Man City for how well run they are, how brilliant their teams are, how excellent they do in the Champions League, sorry, how well they're doing in the transfer market. We've praised, how many times we praised City for saying when they buy a dud, they go straight out the next year and replace. But what if all those things we've praised them for were only possible because they cheated the system? It changes our entire perception of the last 2 decades of football. And for me, I don't believe if they're found guilty of the majority of the major punishments, I don't think it will be anywhere near 5 points, 7 points. I think it will be a massive, you're talking 30, 40 points. There could be transfer bans. There could be all sorts of elements.
So let's talk about that then.
Yeah,
let's talk about that then. So the reason I don't think they will is, first of all, I think they're weak, right? Straight away.
That's a good point. I do get that.
I think they're weak, right? Second of all, I don't think they will because I think that it sets a dangerous precedent that then everyone that does it will get relegated, and I just don't think they'll be able to handle it. Third, I think it's going to cause.
I'm sorry. Unpack that one for me. Why? So because it makes other clubs think if we cheat, we'll get relegated.
No. What I'm saying is, so then what if another 4 or 5 clubs in the next year are all found to be doing the same? They're just going to relegate everyone. I just don't think they will. I'm not saying they shouldn't, by the way. This isn't me saying what I would want to happen to clubs. I just don't think they will. What I think they'll do is I think they'll give them a massive points deduction. And let's be brutally honest. If you are Man City, let's say at the end of this season, right? Because, okay, let's say it goes to court in January, right? I don't know. I'm just spitballing in. Let's say it goes to court in January and Man City are found guilty. You can't relegate Man City in January, in the mid-season. You can't relegate a team mid-season when they've still got to play 18, 19 Premier League games, right? Because then that ruins the whole league for everyone.
That makes sense.
What if you then get to the end of the season and they turn around and go, right, Man City are relegated. So then that means what? That the 18th place team stays up and Man City go down in their place.
So I understand that. And I think that's why there needs to be a bit of transparency about when this trial is going to start. How long is it going to take? I also don't think if they relegate them, it would be straight expulsion. I think it would just be that they'd have points taken away. So they could be top of the league with 80 odd points. They're then given a 30 point reduction, and that doesn't relegate them because of how many points they've got as an example. But maybe then they're struck with transfer bans and whatever else it may be. I get where you're coming from, and my fear is that they are weak. And there was a comment that came through a minute ago, and obviously I don't like to ignore the viewers for too long when we're talking, but he says, Terry, your jealousy is showing. This has nothing to do with jealousy, because if you go back over the past 5, 6, 7 years and heard me speak about Man City, I spoke about how impeccably well run they are, the money that they've pumped into the local communities. I've never called Pep Guardiola a checkbook manager. I think spending large amounts of money comes with a very different type of pressure, which takes a lot to handle. I've used exactly the example I gave 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, maybe in the video, that they have been lauded as the project of projects. From top to bottom, inside out, we have looked at the way they've operated. With when Pep buys a bad goalkeeper, year later gets a new one. Buys fullbacks that don't work, gets more. We all sit there and go, wow, look at the pinpoint surgical precision of Manchester City. Wow. My point is, if all of that is a facade because it's been built.
But it won't all be, will it? It won't all be a facade. Let's be completely honest.
Hang on, but it depends on what they're found guilty of course. If they're found guilty of pumping an extra 20 million pound in that they shouldn't have done over a 15-year period, then it's minuscule. But if they've pumped $500 million to $1 billion in, which helped build the original, and this is what someone says here. Terry, cheating is only relevant for that season only. Well, that's not true, is it? If Man United today buy a player that we pay for on offshore accounts, but he plays for us for 5 years, how does that only impact the season in which we bought him? Again, twisted, you're trying hard there, but it's a nonsense. So I do think it depends on the severity of this, but that's why I think this, if they're guilty of this, and listen, I've read the stuff on Chelsea this week, and Chelsea is self-reporting a lot of these things.
Yeah.
This stuff is huge in my opinion, because it's the foundation of which things grow. Managers have been sacked because they couldn't beat some of these teams to win titles. But if those managers had squads that were built where 5 or 6 of those players, and look what you just spoke about with Spurs, take away 4 or 5 of your best players, you drop off. Mm-hmm. Any of these clubs, even the brilliant ones, you take away 4 or 5 of their best players who they couldn't afford, everybody drops off. Do you not think?
Of course, but do you truly believe that what they've done is so severe that they wouldn't have been able to afford, that it covers the cost of 4 to 5 players? Like, listen, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Why? So why do you not? But I mean, if you actually read the emails that we've seen, you are talking about tens and tens of millions of pounds in the early stages of this project. That's lots of players. If you look at Chelsea's situation, what it looks to is Willian, who was brilliant for them. Samuel Eto'o did okay for them. You're talking about offshore payments to secure Eden Hazard, who many Chelsea fans say is one of the greatest ever players and the greatest winger in Premier League history. To act like Eden Hazard was not hugely influential in them winning two Premier Leagues is huge.
Can I tell you, this is the thing. There's a huge difference between what I think will happen and what I want to happen. There's a huge difference. And I know no one wants to hear that, but there's a huge difference. I think if they are found guilty of this to this level, then they should be relegated. That's what I think should happen. I don't think it makes a difference if they are, right? Completely different subject, but I don't think it matters. You relegate Man City and what? They bounce straight back up. It don't really matter. Let's be honest. It'll be a year out and they'll be straight back up. They'll probably be in European football because they would have won something. They would have won an FA Cup or a Champions League, and they'll do it all for the Championship. They'll win cups down there and they'll come back up. I just don't think they will because of how big it's all got. And what I mean by that,
I understand that,
is when people are talking about, they did it as Glasgow Rangers. Glasgow Rangers, first of all, was very different. Second of all, weren't bringing in the money to football that Manchester City are bringing in.
There is no, again, though, if they, and this is why I think, I understand where you're coming from. And by the way, this is all the Rangers examples, everything else, it's unprecedented because that was about mismanaging your money and going bust. This is the complete opposite. This is pumping money into your football club through, when I say illegal, I don't mean criminally illegal. I mean illegal against the laws of the football. So it's a very different scenario to the people in the comments that are saying that. Where I disagree with you, I don't disagree. Where I hope you're wrong in what you think's going to happen. So there's a difference to disagreeing. Is I get your point that City brings so much money in to get rid of them is detrimental. If that happens, then we are setting a precedent that you may as well cheat. And for me, the reason why I've got hope that won't happen is as soon as you set that precedent, you will lose in the long term far more money than you do through, say, kicking Manchester City out of this situation. In terms of, I want to ask you another question because you said something that's really interesting to me. I think if they're guilty of all these things, City and Chelsea, I think it's has had a huge impact on football in the last 10 years. You don't think it has changed? You still think they'd have been this successful without doing it? Or do you think it really depends upon how much money it turns out they've done it?
Look, again, at the moment, everything's hindsight. So we can all sit here and be experts in what they've done. Look, when they go to court and we find out how guilty they are, what it meant, what the money was, the values, then I think we'll be at a clearer stage to have that conversation. Look, I'm not saying they shouldn't be relegated. I'm not saying this at all. I'm just saying I don't think the FA will do it. Yeah, I think what they will do is probably, if we're going to go really harsh with it, I think what they'll probably do is whack a massive points fine on there, a massive points deduction. And all it will mean is that they won't win the league title for a year. Right? Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying it's right.
No, mate, I get you.
Throughout all of football, how many times do we see things and go, that's not right, but it happens, right? Now, I'd be really interested to see. You've got the Chelsea thing happening as well, right? What happens? So, are they going to relegate Man City and Chelsea? I don't know. I don't think they would do it. If they do, they do, but I just don't think they will.
No, I mean, listen, do you know what it is? I didn't think they'd ever give anybody a 10-point deduction for not following their sustainability. And I actually hope
they won't, right?
But this is listen. I didn't ever think that. I thought they'd issue 6 points and put it down to 3. You know, done with transfer, you get a transfer ban and then you get it suspended for however many years. I hope Everton don't win their appeal. I hope we show some goddamn teeth for once and go, no, you're going to be punished. There's some interesting super chats that have come in here in comments. First one says, Terry, what if I found out Fergie had cheated? Then I'd have the same energy. Show me evidence that my club has cheated and I'll condemn it. And not, well, you broke FFP rules with UEFA. We did, and I condemn it. And we got fined, and it's done. We've had our punishment. So
why does no one think that grown-ups can separate their own team from conversations?
Listen,
it's
I remember. You remember when all the stuff come out about the paedophilia at clubs?
Yeah,
and it was, a number of clubs were involved. And I remember doing a video, and people asked me that question: What if it was your club, though? I said, honestly, if it turned out like legends of my club had covered that up for years, not only would I condemn it, I'd have a hard time ever following that club again. That's a genuine feeling of mine, and I hope it never happens. But yeah, if you can show me some evidence of Man United breaking the rules, not fan theory that we paid Howard Webb, show me some evidence we've done these things, and we'll have that conversation. It's as simple as that for me. This here says, let's all talk about why United got 300k fine and Everton got 10 points deduction. Something fishy's going on here. Well, Football Matters is a good attempt, but it's two different governing bodies. UEFA was satisfied with our explanation. They also admitted that they changed protocol halfway through, and United were fined. We were punished. Everton's situation is highly different. I suggest you do some research, and it wasn't by the same people. This here says, strip Spurs of the 2008 Cup. Harry Redknapp, the wheeler dealer, can drive off, I guess, but you will get found out. Spurs not finishing in the top 6. Did you read about that? Your name's been dragged into this now because you used an unlicensed agent 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, where does it stop? What do we do? Go back to 2000, back to the 90s? Where are we going to stop? Look, I've never been. I feel like our owners are as dodgy as anyone. Everyone goes, oh, but Spurs are running the right way. Look at their owners. Our owner is as dodgy as they come. And if I'm not wrong, isn't our owner facing federal court in the US for financial irregularities and tax evasion? Yeah. Like,
you know what's really interesting? I don't know if you read about this. I'm sure you did as a Spurs fan. That for a while now, see, I reckon they knew this was coming because he was removed from an official owner onto the company's house a long time ago. Yeah, because they know what's coming.
Right, so here's my thing then. So can all football fans stop going on as though this is only going to be Man City and Chelsea? All of these billionaires are billionaires for a reason. There is dodgy stuff going on everywhere. I bet you if they look deep into all the football clubs, there is something going on.
I've said this again. City fans seem to miss this bit on videos where I talk about it. I want an independent regulator to come in and start regulating us. I want an independent regulator to come in and start and have the right to go, right, we're going through your accounts. We're checking everything because I don't, and this is, again, I get people defending their clubs. I don't want to win the Premier League via my club cheating. It won't feel like winning. Whether you've cheated on a computer game, or you've cheated at an exam, or you've cheated anything, and you know an answer or a result, it never feels as good. It can't. I remember doing a pub quiz once, just a little pub quiz, and someone was getting a lot of answers right, and I tell you, I know the answer. Turned out he was using his phone, right, and it's a stupid little thing. We won. I didn't even feel good. I was honestly sitting there like, I know we fucking cheated. It's shit. I don't want to feel like that. So bring in an independent regulator. If my club's cheating, I want them found out. I want them fined. I want them punished. I don't want cheats. It's as simple as that. I'm the guy who got threatened outside Old Trafford by a bunch of burly heads because a bunch of burly bald men, because they heard me on a fan cam say we should ban Rashford after he dived. Not Rashford, it was Rooney for a penalty. I said we should ban him for 3 games. I hate cheating in football. They threatened to beat me up. So I've called out cheating at my own club before, even at penalty level. So let's not go there when it comes to me. Terry, if that was the case regarding United, why did United still get fined? Well, again, I can only tell you what UEFA and Man United have said. I don't know any more than what they've put out publicly. Go and ask UEFA why they only did that. You have to go and ask them. If you think we've paid them under the table or we've sent someone on holiday with his family, fair enough. But I don't know the answer to the questions that are not public. The funny thing is Villa beat Spurs. We lose to City. Villa will go in the top 3. By the way, have you boys seen the WWE brawl with the Brazil and Argentina? Yeah, that was crazy, wasn't it? Did you see that? Do you know what's funny, right? I'm not someone,
South Americans, man.
Mate,
crazy.
I'm not someone who... Our police over here can be atrocious at times. They've done some heinous things in my lifetime. But when it comes to like sort of general day-to-day stuff at football matches or outside bars and nightclubs, I've had some awful experiences abroad with police around football. I'm talking here, like in Roma, I was there. I've been away at some England things, and it's sometimes I wish our police in England would be a bit more like that. It might stop a few idiots on our streets. I couldn't believe there's one bit I saw yesterday where the policeman gave his baton to a Brazilian guy who then started beating an Argentinian. The policeman's giving his baton over. Listen, I was sitting there thinking to myself, thank God I'm not there. I mean, listen, yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Terry, do a tier list debates like you used to. That'll come back soon, my friend. That'll come back soon. Could City stay up with a 50-point deduction? They could, depending how many points they've got, but they could.
They will.
That's
the thing. That's why I think it would almost be an easy thing for them to say, all right, here's a 40 point deduction.
Do you know what I would personally do? I actually wouldn't relegate them because part of me doesn't think that's fair on the level they're going into because they're still a big club. What I would personally do if they're found guilty of everything, so I'm talking the most severe thing, I'd say 80-point deduction, but we do it 20 points every season for the next 4 years. That's what I would do to them. That way, you're not sticking them into a league that they're going to win easy, but you're also making it very hard for them to achieve. I'd also hit them with a transfer ban for 4 years, and then and I would strip their titles that they could very simplistically connect to that money and spending. That is how I would punish them. I'd take the history away and I'd make it very hard for them to win for the next few years as a punishment and as a deterrent. That way, they've still got their money coming in because what I don't actually want is for City to be in a situation where they can go bankrupt. But they're not in like they're not in the Premier League. They can't afford things. Maybe the Sheikh walks away because I don't want the City fans to lose their club. I would do something along those lines. That's what I would do.
I think, you've hit on a really good point there that I don't think anyone sits and thinks about the ramifications. This is why I don't think they'll relegate them. If you chuck Man City into the Championship, into League One, right, they come straight back up, and it just means that a team that would have had a chance of getting promoted from the Championship or League One now can't, right? That can't be right. So listen, this is why, as I've said all along, Terry, if they need to be punished, and we don't know yet when they're found guilty, if they're found guilty, I'm so intrigued to see what do they come up with. Is it 30 points so that they don't win a title and then 4 transfer windows ban? Right? I don't know. But that, for me, makes more sense. You start relegating them, and if you're one of the top 3 teams of the Championship next year, straight away you're going, oh, well, that's us.
That's you, Dub. No, I agree completely.
That's not fair. That's
also,
not fair.
It could also have a really bad effect on Man City because there are different rules in the Championship about how much you can spend on salary. So they'd have to sell like most of their squad, and the money isn't quite there. And they've got a transfer ban, but they can only sell people. Like, and this is the one thing I don't want it to end City as a football club if they're guilty, because the fans don't deserve that. So you've got to be fair. This is just Terry. Every top team can cheat, not only my club. Listen, every single club is capable of cheating, and I will have the same energy for any club that is accused or charged or found guilty of it. It is what it's just not my fault that it's your club and not mine, my bro. And if it was Man United, I'd actually be more angry if it was my club. And I know City fans, a lot of them are keeping their powder dry. I'd be far more angry if it was Man United, because if it turned out under Fergie's regime, we were cheating in one way, shape, or form, match fixing, whatever it was, it would take away all my happy memories of my club. And I don't believe the people that go, yeah, but I still experienced it, I still loved it. I believe that to be 100% cap if it's proven that you cheated, because you didn't win. You didn't win properly. There's no validation to what you did. Nobody wants to win through cheating. I feel this could be a can of worms as well, as I believe all clubs will have done something similar to Chelsea. There is a risk that if they punish them too hard, it may bring others with them. There is that possibility that this could happen. What I do find interesting, though, is that everything City and Chelsea have been investigated for and or charged with is what normal everyday football fans were accusing them of doing from day one, from that money coming in. And now there's like clear evidence, especially with Chelsea, because they've self-reported that these things are happening. No other club's ever been accused of it. So I am intrigued to see, and you'll know this, by the way, by what the other Premier League clubs push for. The reason I don't think it will is that the other clubs are pushing so hard for these things to be taken seriously. Would you do that if you knew you did exactly the same thing yourself? I don't know.
I don't think it will all be the same, will it? I think the difficulty that you're going to have with any of this, as I've said, punish. Absolutely. If you're guilty, you've got to punish. I'll keep reiterating for anyone that's not listening. I think it's going to be so intriguing to see what do they actually do, because the ramifications for somebody somewhere is huge. And it's not just the ramifications for Man City. It's not. It's the people around them. It's their fans. It's the clubs they're going to be replacing.
It's the infrastructure, the businesses. No, I totally agree. I want to ask you a question. The reason we ask these questions on our viewers, why are you talking ifs? Because fans are talking about it, and our job is to speak about it. They're seeing it a lot online. If, for instance, City were found guilty, do you think clubs like Arsenal last season, like Liverpool for a number of years where they finished just a handful of points behind them, do you think if they're found guilty, the title should be stripped and awarded to the teams that came second? Should Arsenal, should Liverpool, should these teams be awarded? Tottenham, maybe, if Chelsea were involved. Do you think you should be awarded for those seasons that you narrowly missed out?
I heard a good conversation about this earlier, and it really made me think about this. On the cold face, you could quite easily say, all right, you finished second. Yeah, you take the title. Right? Nice and done. All right, you lost to them in the final of the cup. You get that cup.
Yeah.
But somebody was saying earlier, it goes deeper than that. Because now the teams that missed out on Europe by 1 point will say, well, hang on. We should have been in Europe. We should have been in Champions League instead of Europa League because they cheated. So we shouldn't have been fifth. We should have been fourth. And look at the revenue we would have got. So where does it stop? Like, where does it stop? Teams that have been relegated because they lost on the last day of the season to, I don't know, Man City or whoever, Chelsea, whoever's fine. They're going to go, well, hang on, we wouldn't have gone down. We wouldn't have lost. They wouldn't have had that player that scored that goal. It's going to be an absolute can of worms if you start taking titles away from people. I'm not saying it's difficult because on one hand, you don't deserve it if that's the case, depending on the severity of what they've done.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, where does it stop, Terry? Because everybody, I can guarantee you, every owner in the country in some way, shape or form is going to go, hang on, they've been dot points for that season, or they're taking, in that season, we lost to them in the quarterfinal of the cup. We would have got, it's going to be mad. It's going to be mad. Look what's already happened with Everton from last season.
I couldn't agree more. Firstly, I think this is only if they're guilty of the extremities, right to the nth degree, then I believe title or some of these titles should be stripped, because if the Premier League are going to say, right, we know you cheated to build these squads and you pumped £500 million in that you shouldn't have done, but you can keep your titles. Still, part of me thinks, how big of a deterrent is that if you maintain that history? In no other sport have I seen somebody cheat, whether it's match fixing or drugs, keep the titles they've cheated for. So I think that should happen. However, I thought hard about this. I've bantered about it. United should have 2 or 3 more titles, and Spurs should have 1, and Liverpool should have more. The problem that you've got is there's no way of knowing when you go back to the first year. For instance, if we just go back to when FFP came in from like 2013-14, Liverpool nearly won the Premier League that year. So if Liverpool would have won that, we have no idea who would have won the league the next year or the next year, because football would have taken a very different path.
Of course.
And that's the way I've used it. Yeah, exactly. So it's as much as Man United came second in 2020 or whatever it was, and Liverpool came second a few years. I mean, if you'd have won the league, Liverpool, with Brendan Rodgers, you may never have got Jurgen Klopp, who would have kept up with Pep, who would have accumulated that amount of points. So it becomes a huge, you can't rectify it. The competitions, as you say, okay, City beat us last year in the FA Cup final. Give it to Man United. No. What about all the teams City knocked out on the way to that final as an example? So for me, I don't believe you can award it. When you start to deep it and you start to have actual conversations where no one's being salty, you can't start taking it and giving it to other people. I understand in singular sports like, say, athletics, 100-meter sprint, if you came second and the guy that won it cheated, you can now get the gold medal as an example. I think they still do that. I know they've done it in the past because it was a race that kind of got you there as an example. But even then, you could argue, well, what about the guys at the champion? Arsenal did brilliantly in stages last year, and I know there'll be an element of goodness sitting again. But if it turns out these guys have been cheating all these years, Arteta should have a title, and I get that. But you just don't know where you and Arsenal would have been if these other clubs that have reportedly. You might still have Unai Emery as your manager, because he might have done better. So it's a hard one to do. So no, I don't think you can award them to anybody else. So
let's have a look at this, right? If we look at who won it, who finished second, all that kind of stuff, right? Are we going to say then for the last 3 years, who's finished second? So you're going to let's just for example, you're going to say, okay, Man City didn't get last year, it goes to Arsenal, right? The year before, it goes to Liverpool. The year before, Liverpool.
No, year before that, 2021 would be Man United.
Sorry, Man United.
Go on, Ollie.
So
Go on,
the year
Ollie.
before that, all right, Man City finished second. So what are they doing? Are they promoting Leicester or Tottenham into a Champions League position? They're going to claim Champions League revenue.
You get to sue Man City for the Champions League money. Yeah,
right.
That's what that is. Yeah,
Then what? Chelsea. What happens if they get it taken away? What does that mean? That Tottenham can sue them? Tottenham can get a title for 2016, 2017. I just think it's a madness. I think we've got to separate these two things. If you are punishing clubs, punish the club. Don't start retrospectively awarding cups, titles.
I agree as well. The Premier League put a really interesting statement or sentence, I think, into Everton's punishment, where they said that Everton didn't gain a sporting advantage through breaking these rules. And what I thought was very interesting, I disagree with it in reality, but I understand why they put that in there, because I don't want to see Everton go into administration, no matter what they've done. I don't want to see City go into administration. For instance, if the Premier League said we believe that Everton did gain a sporting advantage, it would open up the door for the lawsuits that the Leeds Uniteds and Leicesters are talking about, because you've stated they got a sporting advantage. The Premier League stating we don't believe they got a sporting advantage. The only reason they didn't is because they misspent that fucking money. If they'd have bought players that worked out, they would have done. So I think if the Premier League starts retrospectively giving people Premier League titles, it opens up a can of worms for the Champions League money. The teams that City have helped to relegate, teams that have knocked out of cup competitions, you might say, hang on a minute. You know, there could be a Championship club. There could be a League One club they knocked out in the third round, who in the following round would have been away at Old Trafford. And they've gone, well, that cost us 300 grand in FA Cup ticket revenue. So we're suing them. And if these things happen, then City could go out of business. And that isn't what my aim is here, because I don't think the City fans deserve their club to go out of business. So I think they have to be very careful. You punish the club, you take away what you can, but you can't start doing the retrospective awarding of trophies, because it becomes a very slippery slope that could see a whole football club completely disappear.
I mean, it could change.
The irony is FFP and sustainability rules are to stop clubs going out of business. So you can't then punish them in a way that completely kills them. There's got to be a chance to... Do you get where I'm coming from? You've got to get that balance right, in my opinion.
Listen, whatever they do, let's be honest, right? We're all old and ugly enough to know this, right? Whatever they do, there will be some people that are not happy, some people that are happy. Whatever they do, whatever punishment they give them, some people will get annoyed by it. But look, they've got to do... Listen, at the moment, as I said, this should be talked about more if Man City are found guilty, right? At the moment, they're not guilty. It doesn't matter whether we've read what we've said at the moment, until they are found guilty in the court. That is when everyone will be able to have this conversation. And can you imagine this conversation once the actual punishment is handed down?
Mate, it's going to be epic. Someone in the comments a minute ago said, I've never seen like re-awarding of titles. No, it's never happened. And that's why I don't think it should. But I've never seen a big Premier League club relegated through cheating. But no one, so far, as far as we're aware, no one's ever done anything wrong to this degree to warrant it. So it is unprecedented. Terry wants the league to win the league so badly. Of course I want Man United to win the league, Yasin, and I do. But at the same time, this is what's really interesting as well. And I was thinking about this a lot the last few days when doing the shows. I listened to what Lee said yesterday, and although I disagree with a lot of what he said, I understand where he's coming from. But isn't it interesting? And I look at Lee as a prime example, and I'm going to ask him this question next week. He has used Chelsea and City as at times, a stick to beat Arsenal over the head with, and the carrot for them to chase. That's what I want to be like. If it turns out these clubs have essentially become your shining beacon of hope, the club that you take your compass points towards in terms of how you want to operate. If it turns out it's all been done through ill-gotten gains, or big percentages of it have been done through ill-gotten gains, it then changes if you remove them, if you could eradicate them from your minds, it changes the barometer for what a well-run club looks like. Because if you've only been able, it's a bit like if someone has a business, you go, wow, look at the profits they make. But it turns out they're only making that kind of money because they're laundering money from illegal activities through them. Suddenly, you can't look at that business and go, oh, they've got a great business model, because actually a lot of their money isn't through their actual business operations. So I look at it, I want to win the league. I want my club to win the league. Nothing City have done changes my mind about my owners in any way, shape, or form. We were winning Premier League titles with Fergie, and I still wanted the Glazers out of my football club. would it have been nice in this last decade to potentially have won a title or two, even though we've ever been well run? Yeah, of course it would. But the two things are, they're different conversations in many ways. You're not going to see me say, "Oh, do you know what? I forgive the Glazers for what they've done because we should have won titles, but Chelsea and City were cheating." That's not going to come out of my mouth. I don't really feel like that. My club can still improve. Arsenal still needs to improve. Spurs still needs to improve, but that doesn't mean I can't criticize Man City if they're guilty.
I don't think people should be jumping on coattails. Listen, what happens to Man City happens to Man City. I'm just going to throw a human element to this, Terry, as well. I'll throw the human element that I know we never, ever think about as groups of football fans, because we're all so emotive and passionate about football and wanting to see everybody else fail. People saying, "Oh, just throw Man City down to the non-league." What about the thousands of employees that work for Man City?
No, I agree.
What about the thousands of people that are in a job because Man City are where they are? And what I mean by that is, if you go down to non-league, you think they need all that same match day staff. You think they need all of those scouts. You think they need all of those tea ladies.
Without being horrible, they can't. They can barely fill it now. They're not filling. They're not filling it in the National League, mate. Now listen, I totally agree. And the human element,
we have to think about
needs to be looked at. You're right.
Listen, I'm not saying that. I think the biggest punishment for them, the more I sit here and think about it, I think, and again, this is all hypothetical at the moment. Everyone can sit there and go, 115 charges, they're cheats. Cool. Well, when they're charged, we'll know. But
well, in the case, yeah.
But the point is this. I think if they turn around and said, "You know what? You cannot buy another player for 5 years. You cannot buy a player for 5 years, and you've got, here's £100 million fine or whatever that goes to charity." I bet they wouldn't, but it goes to charity or something, right?
That goes straight to the Prem.
Exactly.
Right,
but you know what I mean? If they turn around and said, "You cannot buy players for 5 years, and we are deducting you 40 points, 50 points, which in turn means that someone else wins the Premier League this year," right? Cool. At least then you're in a position where it's, all right, let's see what City are made of, because then City have got to convince all their players to stay, right? They're going to have to rely heavily, more than ever, on their academy, on their youth system, right? They're not going to make all the agents' fees.
No, mate, I totally agree.
I think that would be better. I think that would be better than any form of relegation to like non-leagues and stuff. I just think it's so unfair on everyone if they do that.
I completely agree. CFC Pirate here says, Terry, the same fans accuse your club of bribing refs. Emotional losers will always cry after successful ones. I hear what you're saying, but Fergie's been retired 10 years. Nothing has ever come out. My point is, and I'm not talking about salty idiots online. I remember people just talking, people that had an understanding of business that couldn't understand some of Man City sponsorship deals. Like, well, that business doesn't even turn over that amount of money. How can they afford to sponsor a club by that amount of money? That business makes a loss every year. How can they suddenly afford £500 million? These questions were being amicably and sensibly asked. Similar thing with that of with Chelsea. If it turned out Man United had bribed referees for 25 years, you would see me condemn it massively. But there has never been a shred. And trust me, let me say this, CFC. I would bet a lot of money that there have been thorough investigations by newspapers into Man United and corruption over the years. There's no way we'd have had that much success and nobody was digging into what we were doing. There's no way it would have remained secret for this amount of time, in my personal opinion. By the way, this is the funniest comment of the day, though. And this could be their name if they're found guilty. Man Strippy. That's funny.
These are the type of people I like in the chat. I know. Humour, man. Humour.
Afternoon, Terry and everyone. About if Man United cheating different laws at the same time today, different law 30 years ago. Well, this is also very, very true as well. I mean, when you look at how Chelsea have been funding transfers, I don't think it was against the rules pre-FFP. So if Roman was doing that when he first came in, so what? It's not against the rules. It is what it is. It's about when you did things. If I park on a road today, down the street, and there's no yellow lines, but then a week later, my car isn't parked there, and then they put the yellow lines in, they can't retrospectively give me a parking fine because I parked on there before the yellow lines existed. It's like, and that's not a go at you. Like, people keep saying these things. It's like, well, yeah, certain rules, we're going to go back and replay games because you used to be able to do pass back to the goalkeeper. Come on, rules and laws change. Do you think the Prem and the government may look at it if Chelsea get relegated as they did the sale? The thing is, they oversaw the sale, but no, this is different. This is different for me. Also, I think that Chelsea's situation will be so wholly different to City's because Chelsea are cooperating fully. And again, that should be seen as a marker for people. Chelsea have obviously looked at what's going on with City and thought, there's talk of regulators coming in. There's talk of independent bodies coming in. We've found some anomalies. Let's report ourselves and let's cooperate. Maybe they're hearing sort of credible stories of how bad this could be for City if it goes wrong. But if you, like in any walk of life, if you hold your hands up and say, yeah, we did wrong, the punishment is going to be a lot less and a lot less severe. The Premier League has not given a single charge on game integrity. What do you mean by that? Because they haven't been... If you're talking about cheating in games, as far as I'm aware, City are not alleged to have cheated in games. It's all about financial doping, essentially. Yes, there's charges on there about grass length and weird stuff like that and not cooperating, but it all connects to the money. It's not cheating, and the numbers are small anyway. If you don't think it's cheating, to break the rules, and that's cool. Yesterday, Lee Gunner came out with the funniest comment I've ever heard him say, actually. He says, if you're not cheating, you're not trying to win. I do get it, though. I do get it. Strong penalties or league mutiny. Simple is what Total Red says. And they relegated Juve and Milan. But again, they weren't for potentially financially doping. That was for match fixing. It is a different scenario. But there we go. Look, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in today. To have a really good conversation to have surrounding this. Viewers, I really do appreciate all of you have different views and opinions on this. If you guys send us in questions that you want to, things you want us to speak about on Straight Facts, let us know. Like today, someone DM me, should Arsenal be awarded the league? People have asked me, can you ask Sava what he thinks of X, Y, and Z? That is what we do on the show. Until next time, everybody, hit the like button. Please make sure you subscribe. I think we just had another super chat come through. It says, MC, wait, human element we ignore. Oh, listen, look, I mean, with all due respect, I hope everybody in the world, you know, when it comes to war and everything, that's incomparable to what's going on in football, even the human element, if that makes sense. I'm not going to have a conversation about the two because I do think it's a complete false equivalence. And I hope everybody watching is safe and well and gets home to their families. Listen, everyone who's tuning in, a big thank you. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again very